This lesson and set of activities will focus on physical activity and its effects on the brain. While much of the information you learn will apply to brains of any age, you'll be asked to consider the implications for your teaching based on the age of your students. Before you begin your study, please consider the following questions. While most people understand and can easily articulate the benefits of physical activity on the body, what does the new research tell us about the effects of physical activity on the brain? As you learn, consider the role that physical education teachers play, or could play, in an educational environment that is increasingly focused on academics. And finally, think about what implications this new information about physical activity and the brain might have for all educators. How can we take advantage of information coming from the field of neuroscience and use it to strengthen our own instructional practices? How might physical activity be utilized as a strategy for increasing student learning and achievement? One of the tasks that you'll be asked to complete during this lesson will be to read a compilation of research snippets from the experts. You'll also be asked to further explore on your own, finding at least 3 additional resources that align with what the experts are saying. You'll notice that many of the excerpts come from a book called Spark, The Revolutionary New Science of Exercise in the Brain. This book, written by Dr. John Rady, does an excellent job of pulling together research from a wide variety of sources. It's written in such a way that the reader doesn't need a lot of background knowledge about the brain in order to understand the information. In his book, Dr. Rady shares case studies from schools where the new science of physical activity has been taken seriously and has dramatically increased student learning on a variety of measures and metrics. This book is a must-read for educators, as it convincingly makes the case for physical activity as a critical component in the learning process. As more and more emphasis is placed on increasing student achievement and test scores, and schools across the nation are looking for more time for academics, physical education programs are suffering severe cuts. The information Dr. Rady provides in his book, along with the research findings reported from a number of experts, should help anyone interested in preserving physical education programs to articulate their case by citing an indisputable and quickly expanding research base. Before you begin your reading, I want to share a few of the vocabulary terms that you'll encounter. While several of these may already be familiar to you, some may be unfamiliar, and a bit of priming the pump prior to your reading may help you to better understand specific concepts and information from the research findings. For later reference, you can also find each of these terms in our Moodle glossary. You'll be reading about neurons, brain cells, and nerve cells. These are all terms that are used interchangeably, and they refer to the unique cells that make up the gray matter in the brain. You'll read about neurotransmitters, which are naturally produced brain chemicals that are crucial to its functioning. Serotonin is one of those, and it helps keep brain activity under control. Serotonin influences mood, impulsivity, anger, and aggressiveness. We use serotonin drugs such as fluoxetine or Prozac, for instance, because they help modify runaway brain activities that can lead to depression, anxiety, and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Dopamine is a chemical that is thought of as the learning or the reward, attention, and movement neurotransmitter. It sometimes takes on contradictory roles in different parts of the brain. Ritalin eases attention deficit hyperactivity disorder by raising the levels of dopamine, thus calming the mind. Norepinephrine is a chemical that amplifies signals that influence attention, perception, motivation, and arousal. And endorphins are hormones released by the brain during exercise that make you feel good. This can help you to enjoy the exercise and may improve your mood for several hours after you work out. Endorphins are known to block pain, decrease appetite, reduce tension and anxiety, and can even create a feeling of euphoria. Neural networks are strings or connections of thousands of neurons working together. They work through a combination of electrical impulses and chemical messengers. It is these neural networks and their almost unimaginable complexity that are responsible for every action that we take and every thought that we think. And you'll read about brain imaging technologies. You'll come across references to PET scan, which stands for positron emission tomography, magnetic resonance imaging, and functional magnetic resonance imaging. One of the chemicals in the brain and body that is affected by physical activity is cortisol. It is part of the body's stress response, and while it's critical in survival situations, high levels of cortisol caused by non-survival related stress are extremely damaging to the body's internal organs. You'll learn about a naturally produced substance in the brain called BDNF, short for brain-derived neurotrophic factor. BDNF, which was discovered just in the mid-1990s, is often referred to as Miracle-Gro for the brain. Synapse is a term that you may know. The synapse is the actual connection point between two neurons, two of the many neurons that make up any neural network, any one of which might involve hundreds, even thousands of synapses. Plasticity is a term used to describe the brain's ability to change based on environment and experience. Plasticity is a double-edged sword. It's a great thing to mold the brain based on positive experiences and a healthy, nurturing environment. It's not so good, however, when the environment and experiences are negative. As we now know, traumatic experiences in childhood can profoundly affect the structure and chemistry of the brain, as can traumatic experiences at any age, such as in post-traumatic stress disorder. And finally, neurogenesis is another relatively new term. It refers to the birth of new neurons throughout life. Until relatively recently, neuroscientists believed that the human brain was equipped with all of the neurons it would ever have or ever need at birth. But new research over the past few years has found that new neurons can and do form and grow throughout our lives. So with that overview of some of the vocabulary you'll encounter, you're ready to begin your learning. As you're reading what the experts say about physical activity in the brain, remember to consider the role that physical education teachers play, or could play, in an educational environment increasingly focused on academics. And think about what implications this new information about physical activity in the brain might have for all educators. How can we take advantage of information coming from the field of neuroscience and use it to strengthen our own instructional practices? When you return to the course Moodle, you'll find a link to the Excerpts from the Experts document. This is where you can begin your study. Then, search out several additional resources that align with what you've learned. When you post to the forum this week, please reference those resources and provide live links so that others can access them as well. Thanks for listening. You're on your own now to learn everything you can about physical activity in the brain. I think you'll be amazed.